Welcome back to the Mom Files. I'm Hav.
And I'm Aleea.
And for the final episode in the season, as we're in the midst of the holidays and the end of the year rush, we wanted to talk about the feelings and the end of year guilt that comes along with New Year's and how it can be really normal to feel pressure of the new year and as it approaches and wanting to have a fresh start. But sometimes that leads to focusing on maybe failures or feeling guilt or burnout instead. And so we wanted to kind of dive into that with you guys and talk about our experience with New Year's, especially in this new season of life with our children, and kind of how we can help ourselves get through what might be some end of year guilt. Aleea, do you have anything you want to touch on?
Yeah, I really like this episode topic just because this is definitely something I regularly struggle with, and I have my entire life, especially being as when I was younger, as a lot more of an overachiever. And I felt like even when I achieved things, it never felt like I should celebrate those achievements or like they were worth celebrating. And so I definitely feel guilty a lot, especially when it comes to the end of the year and it's time to reflect and things like that. And in quotes, restart. Like I just always feel like I'll look at the year. And even if there's a lot of accomplishments that happen, a lot of the times I have a hard time acknowledging those accomplishments and being like,
Mhm.
yeah, like that's worth, celebrating. And it does get harder when you get older and maybe your accomplishments don't feel like normal societal
Mhm.
accomplishments, like job promotions, or especially if you're a stay-at-home mom, I'm like your job accomplishments or your life accomplishments might look differently, and sometimes it feels, yeah, I just can feel guilty with it. So I
Yeah.
definitely, and I just sometimes feel unmotivated. So yeah, it's definitely can be a hard topic or a hard time of year, when it comes to reflecting and just like
Yeah.
looking back.
No, totally. I agree with that. I think thinking when we were, talking about this episode and whatnot, thinking about my past New Year's, I've never been one to like set New Year's resolutions and stuff because I just like honestly feel like I'm incapable of achieving it. So why set it for myself to disappoint myself? But I'm kind of right there with you. Like I feel like I actually just never even think about accomplishments. I think about what I did wrong that year and what I need to do better.
Hmm.
And for me, I've gotten a lot better with it, but especially in the past, like I did a lot of avoidance, right? Like I'm just not even gonna make that a New Year's resolution because I'm not gonna achieve it and I don't want to disappoint myself. And as I've grown, it's kind of turned more into like maybe I don't need New Year's resolutions to achieve things. But it's definitely for me, New Year's is not really a time of like reflection on the positive. It's reflection on what went wrong and like what I should be doing better. So yeah, I totally agree with that. It's definitely something that like I don't know. New Year's is this really great thing. And then a lot of us are sitting here thinking about like what we need to do better. So let's dive in and talk more about the pressure and maybe some strategies to help remind yourself that this year's not another reset checklist. And maybe how we can reframe our mind from the negative, like just focusing on what's negative in the year. And on that, I know because a lot of us, well, I mean, I think everybody's year probably fluctuates like a roller coaster, right? And sometimes we don't have really amazing years. Sometimes maybe this year felt like it was a rough year
Hmm.
financially, emotionally, physically, whatnot. And it might feel like we don't have much to celebrate at the end of the year or with the holidays, especially as like feel like Christmas and New Year's time is when everybody's getting together and like sharing the amazing things that they did. I know for me this year, it's kind of like a mix, right? Like I have a lot of really great things to focus on and Azzy and new baby and all of those really great things. But then there's definitely places where I feel like I've dropped the ball with parenting or in work or like financially, whatever the case is. So it's an interesting thing for me to think about right now is like how to stay positive when the holidays are really hard. I mean, we talk a lot about holiday burnout and making the best Christmas and holidays or whatever you celebrate for your kids and the financial burden of that. And then with New Year's, thinking about how you're going to do better when you're still struggling. I think that's going to be one of the more difficult things for me right now.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought this up, especially when it comes to like reflecting on like hard years because and I'm glad when you brought up both work and personal life because I felt this really, really hard last year when Dash was little because at the end of the year, you're in quotes like excited and you have this new baby and it's like that is like a really exciting milestone and things like that. But then at the same time, on the business end, I was like, I didn't make a bunch of goals that I wanted to make when it came to the business. Like there was just a lot of things like it was more on hold. Like my season of life at home was a lot slower. And so it was just interesting because especially if you go on social media and I'd go on like our business channel and you'd see all of these things. It's just funny. It started to feel like I was excited about some things, but then you start feeling guilty on others. And so it was kind of funny because it's like what we've talked about before. It's just so hard to balance both. And
Yeah,
it was just really reflective last year when it was like, oh, I have exciting things, but then it feels like there's a bunch of things that weren't adequate. And at the end of the year, it just can really amplify it. So yeah, I'm glad you shared that because it's definitely something I struggle with is trying to balance both because I'm like, you can look like they're both wins, they're just in different ways.
absolutely. And I think we're both goal like
Mm-hmm.
oriented people. If we set a goal, we'd like really try our best to meet it. I mean, dumb goal for me this year was to read 100 books by the end of the year. I'm at 75. I'm not
Wow.
reading. I I could have made 100. It was originally 50. Anyways,
Wow.
but
I
I
was going to
stopped
say,
reading.
if I get through 12 a year, give me a fucking good old pat on the back.
No, I really got into reading this year.
I'm
I've always loved
impressed.
reading, but when I got pregnant, it was just really, honestly, really hard for me to have like that mental stimulation. And like, it's such a dumb goal, right? Like, that's literally a personal goal. It affects nobody and nothing. But I have caught myself being like, look at you, you set a goal for 100 and you didn't make it. Like, do I set back the goal? Why does
Mm,
it matter if I tell everybody else that was 75? Things like that. So, like, and we'll talk more about this later on in the episode, but like, how do we differentiate what
mhm,
we wanted at the beginning of the year? And like you said, offset it with life. Like, life
mhm,
happens. And I know for our business, we had, like you said, there was a lot of goals. And I think we did really great at them. But like you said, like, kids come first at the end of the day, and it does affect business and goals. And I
mhm,
see that at my job where I'm not my boss. It's like my boss is congratulating me, but in my head I'm like, well, I could have done
mhm,
more, or I could be doing more, or whatever the case. And then I think that's also multiplied when we talk about the grief, like we talked about in our previous episode, of having to deal with like the holidays, and you're already maybe down on yourself about not feeling like you hit personal goals, and then you're also thinking about honestly the grief of not achieving what you wanted, but also maybe family grief or whatnot, with like that might have been what set back goals. And
right.
does that make you like, I don't even say a bad person, but it's like, is that your fault, or again, is that life? Are we dealing with what we need to deal with and need to adjust? But then you have social media, right? Where everybody's posting all the positive stuff. And
I
I know for me, and then I'm getting in my head, I'm like, well, I couldn't get out of my head about this one thing and it sent me back a month, or whatever that case may be.
Yeah, I agree. And we are definitely checklist people. I think that's why when like you were talking about you think about all the things that you could have added because for me it's like I like having a checklist knowing I can complete it and then potentially add more and then be like not an overachiever but you just know like there's always but you made an excellent point and I think all of that you like what you just said like we have to acknowledge that we have to have room for the seasons of life that we're in like and even if you don't know that that season of life is coming it's just like giving a little flexibility for the unknown I think is really
Mm-hmm.
important just because there's so much that can come up this time of year like we've been talking about like especially like I said last year I was managing postpartum it was a very like that was already a lot and then adding on goal setting and wanting to restart especially when you see all the fitness stuff and you're like oh like it can really add to the way you feel with all of those little pieces And I'm like you. I mean, especially the last few years, I've kind of avoided resolutions, and we will actually talk more about that in a minute, but I've done a few other things instead. Like I still do kind of like resolutions, but I've kind of tweaked it, and that's helped a little bit, but I'm still going to tweak it more because it's never perfect. But yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I think it's just, yeah, you have to have some room for the season that you're in.
Yeah. And I think you make a great point on especially like postpartum. And I think like ultimately the feeling of inadequacy that comes with not like, hopefully now that we're talking about, you're looking back at last year, you can recognize like those, they're outlying things that like I can't control. But I think, I mean, as is with life on like a regular, in the middle of March, right? Somebody that you went to college with and were really close with got this amazing job and bought a house and did all these amazing things. I know for me, sometimes if I'm not where I thought I would be in this moment and I see somebody who like I was on par with or thought we were going to be moving along life in the same kind of like timeline, and the feeling of inadequacy comes along with it. It's just natural. And I think that's compounded in the holidays because, you know, people are sharing their Christmas trees and their job events and their children. And again, as usual, we're posting what's positive on social media. I do the same thing, but it definitely is hard not to like kind of compare where you're at.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I think that is an excellent point, is not only the comparison of someone that maybe you're on par with, but I think that's such a great point. It's like what we've been talking about. People usually post their highlight reels and we don't know what, like, they could be going through extreme turmoil in the back. Like really, like we always think like for example, I tomorrow, because we're talking about this, could go on and post the things that in quotes are highlights, and there could be people that would be jealous and think that like I had an amazing year, even if in my head I feel like I didn't. So I think that is a great reminder that like what you see might not be what those people are feeling either. It's really all that they're giving us a glimpse into what they want
Yeah.
us to
Or
see.
even what we think people are thinking about us from
Hmm.
what we're sharing might not be accurate. And I know we talk about that a lot, but it's like the typical the grass is greener on the
Right.
other side. Like it's human nature to compare in some ways. And as much as like I like to say that I don't compare with other people and I am my own person and stuff, like there are things when, especially when you have that goal and you see somebody else achieving it, can be very difficult, especially for your mental health. And I think we can go into more about that and how the end of the year might be bringing on more mental health stressors. I mean, we can talk about just like the holiday change, especially for those that live in places where it gets really gray.
Mm-hmm.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, you know,
Hmm.
like Washington, like
Hmm.
seasonal depression hits hard. And then you're also compounding is going to be my word of the episode because it really is like we're just snowballing those feelings, especially if you're having a hard year. And if
Yeah.
you're not having a hard year and you're like feel really positive, that is amazing, and hold on to it and try to remember like, especially like if maybe next year you don't feel good, like seasons change and life changes, and you having a rough year doesn't make you a bad person, but like how can we right now in the moment kind of adjust our brain set to like remind ourselves that it's the season of life and like to be compassionate with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where all of that it comes into play with social media, just because there's so much of it this time of year. And so like Hoff said, if you are someone that is feeling really good, and if you are on social media, try not to then allow like those things to start weighing on your positive feelings. Like, like don't like try not to like Hoff said, compare too much and stuff, because it can be really hard. And there could be a lot of anxiety, especially because what if you're feeling good and then all of a sudden you see something and now you feel like you're failing. So it's like definitely
Yeah.
just keep that in mind, that yeah. So I think it can be hard trying to just like deal with it all and cope with it all. And with what you were saying, it does lead us into how we can kind of change and reframe and reframe like this reflection time. And I think one thing that you can do is focus on what you survived in small wins. So if you are someone that struggled and maybe you didn't have great, is don't just look at your unmet goals, because I know for me
Yeah.
that can be really easy to focus on, but look at like maybe the goals you did meet, or even within your unmet goals, maybe there was some small wins within it. Maybe you didn't reach
Mhm.
the whole kahuna, but maybe you got some of it. So definitely, I think that's
Nice.
one thing.
75 out of 100. We're
Exactly.
doing great.
And I mean, really, it's like, especially if you compare that to, I'm sure most people in the world, I'm like, 75 is amazing. Like, I seriously, when you said that, I was shocked. I thought
There's
I
a
did
lot.
not think you were going to say that many fucking books. So,
Especially with how busy I know. And those are
yeah.
so that's like a great mindset shift, like, right? Like I'm over here like, oh, well, I could have read 100 if I just kept reading, if right? But like then if I think about I read 75 books. I full-time took care of a toddler. I
Hmm.
full-time worked, did a lot for the
Yeah.
house, supported my husband. Like there's a lot of things that we did, and that's on top of going to events and stuff. And somehow still managed to read 75 books,
And
which is
that's 75 books of not being on social media.
I
Like, I
really
think
was
about
like not on social media. Like TikTok was like a thing of the past, which was really good for my
that's
mental
what I
health
like. I
too.
feel like that's like a nice, yeah, just because it can
Yeah.
be hard to get away. So, yeah, I love that because, yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
really impressed. I'm giving you kudos. I seriously can't believe that.
Thanks, girl. I'm like a really fast reader. I don't know if you remember in college I would like skim everything and be done in like
Yeah,
but yeah.
I'm just shit.
Um but no, I like that's a good mindset to have and sometimes I forget too. One thing that I try to do especially when I find myself maybe comparing like my positives with somebody else's positives for the year. I try to remember it's like working out or with sports, right? Like compete against yourself. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, you want to keep doing better than what you did before. And I'm not saying every single year I'm absolutely doing better financially or physically. Like it's not always we're good, but I do like Tony and I, we always say as long as we are doing better than we did before and we are constantly striving to learn more or to take care of that like whatever it is, as long as we're doing better than we were the year before, we're doing great.
Yeah.
If we didn't meet our exact goals, that is okay. But if I look back at where we were at 18, 19 years old and what I thought I was going to be doing right now, I can be proud of where I'm at. Difficult year or not, financial struggles or not. Like I am not a 19-year-old who doesn't know if I'm going to eat tomorrow. Like we're doing great. So that's one thing that I found really does help myself to kind of just like remember like years come, years go. Our goal is to do better for ourselves. But I think like that hasn't always been easy for me. And sometimes hearing it helps. I gotta give a shout out to you, Aleea. I remember when I was pregnant and I was like, I'm not doing anything. And you just called me out and you're like, look at where you are now. Look at all the things that you wanted for your life when we were in college and look at where you are now. You might not be as far along as you wanted to be, but like that really put things into perspective that like maybe I didn't plan everything to a T, but like I was getting to where I always talked about wanting to be at 19, 20, whatever the case. So like 13-year-old me can look forward and be like, we made it. But it's also my job to continue to strive. So like, yeah.
I think that's an excellent point because that is something I've really grappled with the last few years is to stop thinking like I've had to let go of the life that I thought I was going to have and then readjust and be grateful for the life that I do have because I'm like it is so easy to be caught up when it feels like you aren't achieving the goals or like it can be hard when you're constantly focused at what you thought you were going to be doing in life because like especially like Hav and I we both went to college and things like that so like when I was younger I had a very set vision of what my path would look like and once you start doing life you realize like life doesn't work that way and usually what you have planned doesn't plan out and so I think there's this pressure around that and the new year of knowing like doing exactly what you say. So for me it's like for example the new year. Where is this pressure that we have to reset immediately at the beginning of January? And it's the same with like your plan. It's like, yeah, maybe I had this idea, but it's like who said it had to look exactly like that? It's like you can look at what you're doing now and still, like you said, realize like there's actually a lot of great things. And you might actually realize that you are doing better than you actually anticipated. You just haven't like really acknowledged it. And so for me, one thing, and I really started doing this last year, is and we did talk about this in one of the last episodes about how winter really is a slow down season. Like I like now doing more of like this January concept of like restarting and refreshing and like looking at goals more in spring, because if you are someone who follows like the spring equinox and that type of stuff, that is a time of year for starting again and having a renewed energy. And so I like to give myself that permission to kind of sit and rest during these time of year and then instead begin in the spring months. And as I started doing that, I just realized it really gave myself less pressure after like such a busy season, but also to like, it just allowed me to not feel like I was able to honor both. I'm able to honor where I'm at, but I'm also able to still do the things that like I need to do as an adult. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. And that's actually might be something that would like work great for me. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, like even as a teenager, I just it was like my personality. I was like, I don't do New Year's resolutions. And that was more so because I think I've always understood that the pressure of New Year's resolutions is kind of like, one, why does it have to be New Year's? Like we should set goals for ourselves throughout the year, but two, like that pressure to do everything while everybody else is doing it. Is it because that's what I want? Like new year, new workout,
Right.
right? Is that because that's what is expected, or is that what I actually want for myself? And I can't think, like, I really don't do New Year's resolutions, but sometimes I do like to reflect on maybe some of the things that I struggled more with this year that did make me feel like more down, and like just think about, are they important to me? And if they are, how can I do better for myself in the next year? And again, trying not to compare with other people, but just reflecting on like myself and my family. I know, like, for work stuff, I used to always be like, I'm gonna get a promotion. I'm gonna do, like, I'm gonna be this corporate baddie and I'm gonna make it to this level and that level. Having Azzy put that on 180. And I realized like that actually wasn't what was important to me. That's what I was told was important. And like having a new perspective on life really helped. Like, yes, that income and having that environment is one that I do enjoy, but like having to constantly do better and like compare myself with my coworkers and having like if I don't get this promotion, like, it looks bad on me, stuff like that, and just like taking stuff in stride, and like my home life right now is what's most important to me. But that was a pill to swallow, to be honest. And like that New Year's, thinking back of like before Azzy, I would have had a promotion by now because I would
Right.
have been working my ass off. Was I not working extremely hard? No, I was. It just looked very different than what I expected. Like you said, like life shifts, and I think that's good for us. And when we're talking about this and like how we can reflect on things like that, and instead of feeling negative about them, how can we feel empowered and avoid being overwhelmed by it? Which honestly I haven't figured out, but I do think that like self-reflection of just like giving yourself compassion and remembering that like life happens and life changes, and yeah, just in general, like we need to be gentle with ourselves. So how do we frame our minds, especially like you said, like New Year's resolution, like why does it have to be New Year's?
Right. I love that idea of, I mean, you're really getting into this concept of like redefining the
Mm-hmm.
resolutions, just because it's true. It's like, how do we make them work in a way that works with us? Because it's so hard, especially when your season of life does change. Because, like you said, especially when it comes to work, I think it can be frustrating because you're like, it's not that I wasn't working hard. And it
Right.
almost feels almost more frustrating because you're like, I am giving all and stuff, and it's not being reflected. But like sometimes you have to shift because it can be hard. It just might look
Mm-hmm.
differently. And I think I actually have two ideas for this. One, something that I've actually been doing is I did this last year, and so I'll share the idea, but I'm actually tweaking it this year. So last year I had printed out a bunch of pictures and stuff of things that I had intentions of doing. Like Hoff said, like I sat down and really thought like what I wanted for the year. And that wasn't even like fitness and stuff, just like how I potentially wanted my day to day to look like. Like maybe I wanted to get more into homemaking stuff, things like that. I printed out and put it on like a board so I could see it. And I loved that idea because it wasn't like super specific, but it still gave me things to think about. The problem
Yeah.
was is I never went into that room, so I never saw it. And so
Yeah.
this year, what I'm going to do is tweak it to I'm going to make it, print it out and laminate it and then put it somewhere I see it a lot. So that way it's a lot more in my head. It can be small, it can be movable. Like if I decide like, oh, I'm not going to use this room as much, I can move it with me. And then the other thing just to add is maybe you are someone like us that maybe isn't specific on setting actual resolutions like that. Maybe you don't want pictures and stuff. We actually have a client of ours that does this beautiful and like super soul aligned workshop, and I will link it in the show description. And I'm hoping she does it again this year. She usually does it, but it's she focuses on just a word. So she has you pick a word for the year versus like tasks. So you're able to really focus on more of like a foundation and vision. So like maybe your word is, I don't know, like passion or something. I don't know. But I just
Mhm.
feel like that can be also a great way if you're someone that maybe it doesn't want a resolution, but you do want things to just think about, to set intentions to have. I mean,
Yeah.
goals are still good even if they don't look a certain way.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I think, and that's kind of like the, shifting from like fixing everything to having intentions or just like mini goals. I do really like the idea of the word or even just like mini goals. Like for me, I know that I want to prioritize my physical health, especially pre-birth and stuff. So I think like, but at the same time, if it wasn't working for you the year before, telling yourself that you're going to go to the gym every day starting January 1st is like what makes you think that that's going to work if there was a reason it wasn't working before, right? So I think like for me, maybe this year instead of, okay, my New Year's resolution is to go to the gym every day. No, my New Year's resolution is to start working out, is to like feel good and feel happy about walking or doing small workouts. Because I know, especially for me too, then that pressure of being like, hey, everybody, I set a New Year's resolution that I'm going to work out every day. And then people being like, oh, how are the workouts going? That amplifies the guilt when I don't do like what I intended. Whether it's a work goal or whatever, just using exercising, because that really does tend to be, I feel like, the major New Year's resolutions, especially after the holidays and you feel gluttonous and you haven't been working out and stuff. But like, how can we continue on if you do want to do a New Year's resolution without making it so big? I think the mini goal idea or just having like and then you can expand on that goal. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we talk about in a lot of our conversations with Golden Goose and like production and stuff is like when you're setting your goals for yourself, give yourself mini goals that you can achieve, and then once you achieve those you can add on to them. And I think that's a really great idea with like this New Year's resolution thing. Maybe your New Year's resolution is that you want to be more positive and increase your mental health. Starting January 1st, telling yourself that you're being positive is not, it might help, right? Like morning affirmations and stuff like that, but it's not going to solve everything. So maybe instead of like, you give yourself, okay, I'm gonna tell myself something that I appreciate once a day. Like things like the small mini things that like then will start affecting. And it makes me think of toddlers, right? Like I'm like with Azzy, I want her to be more positive and like be able to understand emotions more, right? But me telling her that's not going to fix it. Every morning we have to wake up and we have to talk about it. And when she has a hard time, we let the hard time happen and then we try to like do better the next time. I'm not saying we're all toddlers, but I am saying like a brain is a brain. Like we can't just switch. I don't know like how many days it takes for you to form a habit. It's like an absurd amount if you do it every single day. I can't remember. I want to say it's like 120 days or something. I could be
It's
totally
something
off
crazy.
there, but it takes what, like 5 days to ruin a habit.
Mm-hmm.
So just remember, life is lifing. Give yourself mini goals that are achievable, and if you do not achieve them, adjust.
I think that was an excellent point when you were talking about like well-being or like fitness. One thing I think you could do is instead of being like, I'm going to go to the gym, you could be like, oh, I just want to be strong this year. Because then it gives you grace to focus on that as a word, or like just like well-being. So, like, okay, I know I want to do that, but maybe it's not every day. And then I think that allows you that's the struggle, is when you do, maybe you didn't go for a week. Give yourself grace and pick back up, because that's where I struggle, is I think, oh, I missed one day, I can't, like, the resolution's over. But to me, that's like where the resolution really starts. It's like, take that and like get remotivated and do it again. And it's like, you're just gonna have to keep picking yourself back up until it becomes a habit. Because like Hoff said, it takes days, years to make something a habit. So
Months. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I actually really like that. And then also I feel like strong, it can have dual meaning, right? Like, yes, it has to do with working out, but like you said, if you don't go for a week and then you pick back up and go again, as we all, anybody who's worked out and then lost the steam and then try to pick back up, we all know that's hard.
Hmm.
So you are being strong by continuing to
Yeah,
try.
I love that.
So I think that's, yeah, I really like that point. And I think we have kind of gone into, we kind of gave a lot of tips, but I think just to kind of compile them together, I think we talked a little bit about social media, and how it can be difficult in this time. So I think, if you can limit your scrolling, or like we talk about in probably all of our episodes, unfollow people that are making you feel like your life needs to be curated, truly. And when you are on social media, I think it is really important, and it's something, like I said, I'm practicing. Try not to compare yourself to them. Maybe congratulate them for the things that they're achieving because they're doing better for themselves, but then recognize that even though you're not in the same season of life, again, highlight reels, right? But even though you're not in the same season of life, what have you achieved that, or done better than you did last year or 3 years ago? It can be little, it can be huge, but like focus on what you're doing for you. And that goes, like, that's practicing self-compassion, right? And just being gentle with yourself. I mean, would you want your little one being that negative on themselves? So it's another good reminder of like, we're showing how to be compassionate with ourselves by practicing it. Kind of reminds me of gentle parenting, right? Like, a lot of us we're never taught it, so we have to learn it. And by learning it, we're teaching our little ones. Um, and like Aleea said, honoring your own timeline and recognizing that it may be slower, or giving yourself smaller, meaningful milestones, using the one word, creating mini goals, things like that. Whatever works best for you and your mindset. But just remember, it's you and your mindset. What works for me probably doesn't work for you. I know what works for a lot of people, what works for a lot of my friends does not work for me. And I can be happy for them, and I can push them and they can push me. But as long as we recognize that it's like kind of in a different way, that's kind of what's important. So, kind of to wrap up there, just remember to try to stay positive. Having negative feelings is not bad. It does not make you a bad person. But in those moments, trying to remind yourself that you are human, and just to have that self compassion is really important. I think this year, these are some things that I'm going to focus on for myself, especially as we're talking about, the end of the year work goals and financial goals, and making holidays as amazing as possible. I know, like, for me, I'm already messaging my husband feeling like I'm like, not meeting the goals that I wanted to for Christmas. But then I also look at what I've been doing already. And if I was somebody else, I'd be congratulating them. So maybe also stepping outside of like thinking about yourself, and like, what would you say to a friend in that situation? That's how you should be talking to yourself. Aleea, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I love that. I love the thought of taking a step out and like looking, at a bird's eye view. And I do think too, as we find or finish up this year, I think too, it's a good reminder as you head into the new year, especially Hav, as you're going to have a new baby. This next year could look different. So also definitely think about that. But yeah, I definitely think the new year can feel heavy, especially if you are a mom that carries invisible load or burnout or struggle in a different way. So I encourage you to definitely look for the good reflection and not the perfection. And like Hav said, take a bird's eye view if you can. And like we've talked about, you don't have to start over, to keep going. So progress is personal, it's gradual, and it's enough however you do it. So this is definitely something I'm working on. And if you Yeah, if you're struggling with it, just remember, like, it can, this is what your timeline can look like. And that's
And don't
normal.
forget the loopies, the
Yep.
loopy loos.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all humans, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. I feel like we're always giving other people breaks and then never giving it to ourselves. And I am
100%.
100% guilty of that. So that will be my New Year's goal.
Yeah, be more gracious with yourself.
Be more gentle.
Be more.
But yeah, that's it for season 1. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for listening and being a part of our village. Well, as you know, us moms have to stick together. It's a crazy life that we live, especially in today's day and age, and we really couldn't do this without you. So, with that said, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show, especially as we will be taking a break
Mhm.
until the next season. So, make sure you subscribe so you can get those updates and get information on when the next season is coming out. Please also rate and review on your
Please.
favorite podcast player. That will really help us know kind of how we can adjust for next season, what we're doing well, maybe what we can add on, really anything that you feel like would benefit you
Mhm.
and part of being this village. Please let us know. And with that, stay tuned for next season. Stay tuned for next season. It'll be coming out next year in 2026, and we'll be talking about a lot of things involving pregnancy, as that is a season of life that I am in, and we think it could really benefit those uh our listeners in our village, as I will literally, I am in the thick of it. So again, if you have any questions or any topics, especially related to pregnancy or just, in general, being a mom, but this is a good question to ask, pregnancy questions, please send them our way. And we hope you have a Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and a wonderful New Year's. Cheers to 2025, and let's have a great start to 2026. We'll chat with you later. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Bye.